Welcome back to the best LCS stream currently running. We're about to get into Game 3 of Misfits versus G2. And now everything is on the line here for both of these teams. It's our final game of the day. And as we get into it, Misfits, once again, on the blue side.
Yes, they are. They have returned to the side that seems to work for them. And I think that this time it will give them a little bit more of an advantage when it comes to the draft, because we saw in Game 1, they definitely knew what they were doing. I don't think they're going to get LeBlanc again. I think that Perks has said, you know what, okay, you can play LeBlanc. That's fair enough. So that likely isn't going to come out, but I'm hopeful that Misfits will pick something that allows them to be a little bit more aggressive in the early game. It's Game 3. We've had a lot of slow games. We want a little bit more action. We want a little bit more bloodshed.
And we spell action K6. I want to see Kha'Zix picks. That's all I want to see. I want to see Trick again on it, or I want to see Cacao again on it, but we're going to find out. We heard from Trashy on the desk. Priority on the jungle. That's what he wants to see. He wants to see something coming in here on the side of Misfits. Now, unfortunately, the picks and bans, at least for the first 3 bans, are going to be almost identical, I believe, to Game 1. We'll see if Misfits want to go for any mix-ups here.
Just a hunch. I think we're going to see Camille there next. I know it's a bit out there. Oh, look, shocker. Now we're looking at Misfits. They actually banned Rise in Game 1. Looks like they're going to do it again. And I believe, now in Game 1, this is where we actually saw a Lee Sin ban coming out from G2 Esports. But I expect it to be the LeBlanc.
All right, Vedius. Trevor, Quickshot Henry would call it your crystal ball. We'll see how accurate it is with 15 seconds left on the board. LeBlanc, of course, very powerful in the hands of Power of Evil, and they're not going to give it up this time around. Lee Sin up and available, but as is the Kha'Zix, which could potentially come in for Cacao.
I feel like the Kha'Zix will almost certainly be the priority. This is something that they have valued heavily in previous games, and it is no surprise, which means that G2 are likely to go for an AD carry along with their Rek'Sai, something that we've been seeing pretty much fairly consistently throughout this draft.
Ooh, Ivern prioritized above the Rek'Sai. I like this. The Ivern pick seems like a big weak point for Misfits. Not quite sure how to play around it. And of course, as long as you have other damage sources, he was more than happy to support them.
You're now also testing Cacao's ability to be aggressive in the early. You have to try and abuse that window where Ivern takes a while to ramp up, takes time to be that supportive player. And now when we look at the Misfits lineup, we could very well see an early prioritization of the support. If you wanted to go for something like a Karma, you could do that right now. Alternatively, you could just look to pick up your top lane like they did Game 1 and prioritize the Shen.
And really, this was a big pick coming in for Misfits. Alfari on the Shen, much easier for him to participate in the plays across the map. And we've seen Kha'Zix Shen be an absolute powerhouse duo when it comes to starting off those team fights. Kha'Zix sleeps in, he's got the tanky stats from the shield, and someone else to back him up.
I feel like if you're G2, you could actually go for a Rumble right now. This was something that Deficio was very passionate about yesterday. Felt like that it's a really good pick into Shen, and I have to agree with him. Also, if you leave it open now, then Misfits are just going to ban it away. We did see this actually earlier on in the day, but G2 are just saying, hey, we want to pick up more tanks.
Last time around, there was a lot of candy, there was a lot of pets. This time around, there's a lot of trees.
There are a lot of trees. I mean, perhaps it's simply a matter of we want a friend of the jungle, and there we are. We've got a jungle in the top lane. So, obviously, that's a Maokai top lane, just to specify. That's an Ivern jungle. I'm in a literal jungle. Nevertheless, right now, G2 are looking at prioritizing. I mean, it's actually been matched, so it's fairly open right now. You can kind of just ban away the power picks.
Well, speaking of, they're going to ban the Syndra away from Power of Evil, a pick that he has found a decent amount of success with. But jokes about the trees aside, I mean, G2 picking up a very strong tank on the top side of the map. I'd say universally the strongest in the role of tanking, but I feel like Shen has so much more pressure when it comes to making impact elsewhere on the map.
Well, I mean, he definitely has a lot more global pressure, but in terms of actual lane pressure, he falls a little bit behind in terms of Maokai, simply because of his ability to wave clear early on, so you can get shoved under depending on how aggressively Alfari chooses to play, which we do know he is that sort of player. So, honestly, I don't think top lane is going to be the most exciting matchup, funnily enough. And with a lot of mid lane bans, I wonder what we're going to move towards. I wouldn't be surprised if Power of Evil is looking towards something like an Orianna. And just to confirm, G2 have missed a ban. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that was intentional, but it certainly looks like it. So right now, with G2, their first pick on the board, I feel that you could just go for something, go for your mid laner right now to avoid, okay, never mind.
Well, here's the thing, apparently it's just been reported to me that G2 accidentally missed their ban timer, so we're not going to see that crazy coming out. Of course, now, interestingly enough, the Thresh going to be picked up by Mithy here. We've seen that banned away from Ignar. They didn't want to put it in his hands, and is Mithy going to go back to this?
So I wonder whether or not this was actually a pick because they're afraid of Ignar's Thresh. They actually don't want him to play it. And the fact that they've actually picked it up definitely means that they have a lot of pick potential. They're depending on what is picked up on the bottom side, I feel that when you look at what's banned away, there aren't actually that many great supports into it, other than these melee tanky supports. And what has Ignar brought out in the past, it is this Taric. So good at team fights, so good at mitigating the damage, and I actually think it's perfect into a champion like Ivan, because it's great for stalling.
I just want you to bear with me here, but so often we see protect the 80 carry comps. This feels like a protect the Cossacks comp. He can leap in, he can get the ultimate from Taric, the ultimate from Shen. You can attach a stun to the Cossacks as well. It's going to be absolutely terrifying. Of course, Kakao and Hans Sama similarly can take the priority here. A lot of insane engage potential coming in on the side of Misfits, and G2 really need to consider their last pick here.
Talia could have been an alternative, but Cassio works out perfectly fine too. Scaling mid laner, does well against the Ori. Usually, a lot of people would argue that Orianna does have the advantage in this matchup because you can use the ball to trade very effectively early on. And if you've ever seen Faker play this matchup, it's kind of brutal how well he manages his ball placement. So we'll have to track the mid. This time mid will actually be a lot more exciting. We can track it a little bit more.
I feel like Faker's a really poor guide to estimate how mid lane matchup goes, just generally.
Well,
sometimes he wins things he shouldn't. Most of the time, he wins things he, regardless. So.
Still, the point still stands. Ori has been known to do very well into Cassio in many instances.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just saying that we'll have to see how these players feel about playing out the matchup. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is game 3. G2 want to retain their spot at the top of the group. Want to remind everyone that they are still the best team Europe has to offer, but Misfits looking to make a big name for themselves here.
They certainly are. And with a composition that I really, really like the look of. So much more teamfight potential. So much more early game impact, moving into a good mid game where they can look to take advantage of. And I think this fits more into the Misfits style, whereas G2 going for a little bit more scaling. I feel like they have to be a little bit careful of where they actually have push priority. But I'm really excited to see how this final game plays out.
And this is your last chance. Hashtag MSF win if you think Misfits can pull it out. Hashtag G2 win. Vedius, this is my question for you.
Yes.
Are we going to see people kill each other in the early game?
I hope we see people kill each other in the early game. If Kakao can be that hyper-aggressive early game jungler. Remember, we have to backtrack to earlier on in the day where we actually saw this Kha'Zix versus Ivan matchup in Unicorns of Love versus H2K. The Kha'Zix was not able to fully utilize the fact that Ivan has a weak early game. This time, though, we've already seen that Misfits like to move in early, try to get a bit of vision, see where the Ivan is starting, and perhaps Kakao is different. Perhaps he looks to try and shake things up in the early game and perhaps try and punish that weak early Ivan.
You have to respect it, though. He does have an insanely fast clear time, can get that level 4 really quick, and even if you can outduel him 1v1, maybe he'll just outclear you. One mistake and you put yourself pretty far behind against the Ivern as well, so a lot of dynamics to talk about in this jungle matchup. Will this be the time where Kakao invades the jungler, where he doesn't look to fight the lanes, he just looks to fight mano-a-mano with Trick? 2 star Korean players here in the ULCS. Kakao rising quickly to former glory.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, to give some context, we are currently undergoing a very brief pause because we are just having a quick look at Perks' masteries. The entire details behind it, all I do know, I don't fully understand the entire details behind it, but what I do know is that Perks has a problem, which we are looking to rectify. So you will have to deal with our loving company for the time being.
I think Perks' problem is that he's currently tied with Misfits and that he needs to find a win here.
I mean, that G2O clip you were talking about is looking very precarious right now.
Very important that he finds the win here.
I mean, it means a lot for the whole group as well, because think about how things open up. Given that G2 have already taken down Fnatic, this would move them actually down to second place. Misfits would be sitting at the top. And then, I mean, I'm already pretty excited to see that Misfits versus Fnatic game that's going to be going on next week, I believe. Like, Group A is pretty exciting. Like, definitely a lot of surprising things. Like, when we look back at Giants' performance yesterday, like,
Giants,
really cool
I mean, Memento was absolutely killing it, a player we have to be excited for. And honestly, Group B as well. Unicorns of Love.
Yeah.
Now they're at the top of Group B. Spice maybe going to find their way back. You know, some pretty confident wins yesterday, but see if people want to ban Rengar.
What?
Or not.
No.
Or not. You don't need, I mean, you don't have to.
Oh, man. Kakao just chilling. He's always so relaxed on camera.
He's pretty relaxed all the time.
Yeah, he's actually a super like happy guy.
I've had one interaction with Kakao, and I like had to say excuse me to someone, and they weren't moving. And Kakao just looks at me and goes, XD! That's it. The only words he's ever said to me. Needless to say, I'm a Kakao fan now.
I mean, to be graced by who was considered to be the best jungler in the world at one point.
Up there with Dandy, yes.
With XD, I mean, what an honor. What an honor.
And you can see his English is obviously improving as well from understanding the...
So, interesting interactions that I've had. So, given that Alfari and I are both from Wales, the most in-depth conversations he and I have are, oh, you're right, mate? And he's like, oh, yeah, not bad, but how's it going? And I'm like, oh, not bad, not bad. And so that's about the extent of our conversations. But it's nice to know that just through that interaction, we actually gain a lot of mutual understanding. It's the advantage of both being from Wales.
And what understanding did you glean from that
what did I glean?
wondrous
that he felt
interaction?
Incredibly confident about today's games and that he would destroy. And no, obviously he didn't say that, but...
No, I said he's all right. I mean,
no, he said he's not bad. I'm not bad. I'm not bad. Anyway,
if you're just joining us, by the way, we do have a pause coming in from GT. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. We'll be honest. We're talking about stuff that we think is interesting and funny because we don't want to just talk about the game that you can't see on your screen right now. We're going to save that for when the game starts.
We've had 2 very long games so far. I think both have been 40 minutes plus, and we've been pretty game heavy. We learn a lot about the players, and now you're learning a little bit more about the interactions between Mr. Dracos and myself.
It's pretty much like this all the time.
Pretty much literally like this.
I'm usually a little more disappointed in you consistently, though. Now, of course, let's talk about Kakao. Because I want to talk a little more about Kakao, and it's not about XD. I want to talk about the difference between Kakao when he plays Rek'Sai and Kakao when he plays Kha'Zix. Now, 2 very scary, void-ish animal champions. I actually don't remember Rek'Sai's backstory, but I know Kha'Zix. Void stuff going on.
Yep.
So bear with me here. When he plays Rek'Sai, I feel like he's everywhere that he needs to be. He's supportive. He's for the team. But when he plays Kha'Zix, Kakao plays for himself.
I mean, it definitely appears that way. We had a good look at his warding stats earlier on this week, where actually, when he plays Kha'Zix, his ward control is significantly below every other Kha'Zix that has been played in the league. He really does not invest time into trying to control areas. He has Ignar for that. Like, he spends a lot of time with Ignar. Ignar's got him covered. He's not too worried. He instead focuses a lot more on early itemization. Like, he went for a very early Tiamat. Just in his first week of the LCS, he was definitely looking to play more towards clearing out his jungle, getting that early farm, and looking to play more aggressively. And in teamfights, like, his mechanics are not something you can definitely look to underestimate. And I feel like in week 1, we didn't see the maximum output that he was able to achieve. Whereas in week 2, we've seen a lot of Rek'Sai. We already saw him have a lot of good outplays, patiently holding on to his flash, coming in with very good ganks and flanks. And now we get to see how well he does on this. And I mean, when we look back into today's earlier games, so far Kakao has been one of the standout performers for me. Like, we were pretty interested in how Alfari would do up in the top lane, but he's mainly been playing tanks. His global exertion in game 1 with the Shen enabled Misfits to get a very good start to the game.
And honestly, when we look at that play, that was pretty much the defining moment in the game, was that successful collapse on the bottom side. Everything kind of blew open
triple
from
kick
there.
for LeBlanc. Triple kill for LeBlanc in mid, definitely.
All right,
definitely
so if we have to
helped.
choose between the double kill and the triple kill for highly impactful, maybe it was the one with the bigger number. But maybe. You can't be sure.
But I mean, in terms of what we're seeing so far, like, Misfits have been impressive. And a couple of question marks for G2, because in game 1, they were put in that early deficit. They tried to buy time, and they kind of got baited out by Misfits pretty effectively. Like, the fight in the mid lane where Misfits were able to get that triple kill is really where G2, a lot of it was mispositioning from Sven. He had to be saved by Mithy. Like, in the enemy jungle, he had to burn his flash, and that resulted in Mithy's death, you know? Like, when we look at the individual performers, yes, game 2 was much better, but I feel like a lot of that was a bad draft from Misfits and a good one from G2. And, like, I think a lot of people expected G2 to just come in and crush. They expected to exert their dominance over their opponents, and so far we're yet to see that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have an update for you. We will be remaking the game. There was a Runes and Masteries issue for Perks. It's been ruled that he will be allowed to change that in the remake, and we will continue from there.
And unfortunately,
so basically the pause is over, but it's like gonna be another minute.
Yep.
So stick with us.
My keyboard doesn't work, so I'm stuck in the game of 10 people not playing. So that'll be exciting. But fortunately, I have your computer to save me in this dire situation.
No, you don't. This is my computer.
So when we look at overall the competition, I think this is really promising for Group A, like an overall the European League, because I think that we thought that Europe would be a lot closer this season. I certainly think that it has been so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. See if this maintains, because we saw this at the start of last season as well, where it was 1 or 2 teams running start, 100% running start, coming out strong, and then started falling apart as the season went on. We'll see if this remains the story in EU, or if we'll see consistent powerhouses reigning at the top, or a little bit more parity between each and every one of these teams.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, bear with us. We are getting into game. The issue has hopefully now been resolved for Perks. I know it's been a long day. Thank you very much for sticking with us, because I know that this final game is likely to be an exciting one. At least that's what you and I are expecting, isn't that right, Mr. Dracos?
There's a thresh, you know. There's a lot of murder.
On Mythy?
On Mythy. A lot of murder potential there.
Murder!
This is important. I think that's what, I mean, let's be honest. Strategy, big picture macro plays.
Wards,
they're hype, don't get me wrong. Like, there's some cool stuff that can happen there.
Certainly.
But the one thing that everyone appreciates equally is some good old-fashioned League of Legends kills.
I mean, that's very true. Especially when certain champions get certain triple kills. Like, it definitely makes the game far more exciting, assuming that they can use the leads that they've attained, which, a couple of question marks, so whether or not Misfits can quite do that yet.
Why are you speaking rhetorically about a game that happened like
because I'm still
ago?
disappointed that it took them like 45 minutes to close out that game.
He's talking about LeBlanc, he's talking about Power of Evil. Surprise. That champion's not in this game, luckily.
He's playing Ori, champion that he has been known for in the past. Did you know at one point I used to main Ori? Like every other champion in this game.
Okay, but to be fair, you also said that you main Katarina, and I watched you feed relentlessly.
Dude.
All right, hold on. We just got an update. Just to remind everyone, we are still remaking the game. We are closing in as the game will start soon. And I just really wanted to use that as an excuse to cut off your excuses about basically losing us the game, if I'm completely honest.
I mean, harsh. Very harsh, but fair. My Katarina was a little bit rusty. I was warming up. Definitely a sensitive subject. Nevertheless, we must strive onward. And let's backtrack. Let's look at the pick and bans, because the camera's on us now.
It's very true.
So
can't mock you. It's harder to mock you when I know that people can see me mock you. But you are going to take a look at the picks and bans. We should have those popping up at the bottom of your screen. Keep in mind, we're not going to go back into what you would normally see during picks and bans, because it's exactly the same. Once again, just changing runes and masteries.
So it's
4
our
perks.
faces. So imagine pick and ban going on just while looking at us. Right. So there was an early prioritization on the Kha'Zix for the side of Misfits, something that we have seen from them fairly typically. Interesting that they've actually put so much value on the Shen when we think about how many counter picks are actually available in the game right now. AD Kennen is something that's been popping up fairly globally, to be totally honest with you, just to act as a really potent split pusher. And we actually even saw it coming out from Alfari in that incredible, very tense game up against Rocket.
See, I feel like, and don't get me wrong, that was a fantastic finish, but that really didn't feel like the AD Kennen to me. I feel like when we see AD Kennen be successful, it's because someone is dominating their lane. And while it seems like AD Kennen does set you up to do that, I don't feel like we've seen that here yet. We haven't really seen a Kennen take over a game the way we've seen it in LCK, in the hands of Marin.
Yeah, and, well, on top of that, you've also got the Rumble, which actually wasn't banned away this game. We had one lack of ban coming out from G2. Another bit of a surprise. It's surprising how many people have actually missed bans with the additional bans that have been coming in.
Well, when you cut the ban time in half, you're under crunch time. Like, I think people don't appreciate that not only has Champion Select gotten more complex outside of the first ban phase, which has apparently become very simple, you have less time to think about it. So you think you're playing against Unicorns of Love, and they pick, they give you Rengar, and then you can imagine being Vitality and seeing Poppy Ivern. Nothing. You haven't prepared for that, let's be honest. So there's very little time to react. You have to be a team that's comfortable being flexible on the fly.
You also have to remember that these guys are actually given more time to prepare in advance because now you're only playing 1 or 2 teams max a week, which in the past, I mean, you may have actually been playing 3, maybe 4 teams per week, which means that you can just invest more time, more prep. So less time in pick and ban, but you should be more prepared overall.
Well, we are finishing out now. Mithy has locked in the final pick here. Players just have to swap, and it'll be should be about a minute and a half to get into game. But
just a minute more.
Just a minute more.
Until the final deciding game.
And, this could be a preview.
One man, one destiny.
Will be a preview of when they play again in like week 7. I'm making up a number. It's later in the split. Bear with me.
In the split. I mean, that's exciting too, because week 3, they all have their final matches in their group, and then week 4 is when the cross-group matches start. So we get to see teams like G2 versus Unicorns of Love. We get like Misfits going up against H2K. A lot of exciting games to come in the future.
Overall, enjoying the group stage. I think it's pretty cool to see how these teams stack up.
Personally, I'm enjoying this moment right here.
This moment that we're sharing together, me and you.
Really happy to cast
me, you, the audience, the people that have stuck with us through this pause, this delay.
Together forever.
I think if there's any lesson here, folks, it's remember in solo queue to double check your runes and masteries to make sure you have a keystone. I don't know if that's what happened to Perks, just an example.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, enough of us rambling on because finally we are getting into game 3 of Misfits versus G2 Esports to determine who will be moving into that first place position in Group A.
And in case you're not on Twitter already during the pause, hashtag MSF win, hashtag G2 win, depending on who you think will come out on top. I said it'd be the last chance last time, but now this is actually your last chance, so I highly encourage you to do it. But let's get hype. Stakes are up. Game is going. G2 versus Misfits, game 3.
So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are now into our final game of the day, and we've talked a lot about the picks individually. We talked about it during the draft, but let's have a look at the actual compositions as a whole. Because what we criticized Misfits for in Game 2 was for picking a comp that took too long to scale. They could do nothing in the early game. And when you allow G2 that early game to scale at the same rate as you, as a team that has more experience, that just has stronger, arguably stronger players, you're just asking to eventually collapse. And especially the way in which G2 played around that Cogmore demonstrated how well G2 could adapt to the swing pick, the crazy pick that came out from Misfits. But this time, they've gone a lot more standard. They've gone a lot more team fight with the Varus and the Orianna. They have way more early pressure with the Kha'Zix, and he scales incredibly well. And the team fighting from the Taric, I'm actually really excited to see.
Ignar, of course, an absolutely insane player in the challenger scene. Was notable for getting so far ahead in his game that he would build Proto Belt and then continue to pretty much single-handedly win some of those team fights with great use of his abilities there. Can't imagine we'll see a Proto Belt this time, but we do have to keep our eyes on this man.
I mean, it's definitely risky to run a Proto Belt into this sort of comp, especially when you have the Casio.
I think you need to follow up on the Proto. That was kind of just like a little side story.
It was my subtle transition. But the overall comp from G2 is very similar in a way to what we saw from Game 2, because you can actually just invest all of your support onto the Casio. The harder part is actually going to be providing peel for someone like the Jhin against the Kha'Zix, because Thresh, while he definitely can be good, he's much better at finding those picks, finding those opportunities to catch your target out of position and going in a little bit more than providing that amazing peel.
Mithy, you can see already playing on the front lines, wants to take advantage of the short range, albeit range advantage. Thresh does have both lanes rushing for the fast level 2, but we talked about this in Champ Select, Vedius. We talked about Kakao, the expectations for early game. May have to hold that thought. Sven holds on to the crit. Just a bully Hansama out if he does try to approach there. Quick early lane trading.
You can see the prioritization to try and get that early level 2, because now that you have the 2 melee supports, getting that early level 2 is so much more important. And you don't really have the range advantage to help you with the push. So there's a lot more back and forth, a lot more trading. And this is a lane that we actually wanted to track a little bit more, because we talked about how usually you would argue that Orianna does have the lane advantage, but it comes down to really good ball control. And you can see the Power of Evil is already positioning his ball in a way that enables him to harass the mid laner every time he tries to go for farm.
Kakao, this is what you're talking about, mounting the stun on the leap for Kha'Zix. Maybe looking to get aggressive. Perk's just going to flash out. Nice early play.
Really good rotation from Ignar as well. They'd gone the early level 2 bot, and this was something that we've actually tracked from Ignar a lot as well. When we look at the amount of time that Mithy spends with his AD carry along with Ignar, it is so much more for Mithy because he's more about enabling Sven to get through the laning phase, to have a good early game, to set him up for success. Whereas Ignar is much more about roaming around with Kakao and looking for picks and plays around the map. And already at level 3, we are seeing this happen.
And while sometimes that may cost Hans Sama, whether it's CS or a bit of health in a trade, right now they end up gaining the greater benefit. Perks' flash now down as Trick goes for the invade. Causes, of course, taking away a camp on the top side. We talked about Mithy not roaming lane quite as much, but he's still going to make an appearance into the mid lane. Scryer's Bloom spawning out a little bit. Caution pings going down there, aware, as Power People now plays to the top side.
Smart awareness, really good. The fact that Misfits recognize that the bottom lane is missing, realize that the chances of an invade, chances of getting deep vision is pretty high from the side of G2. So good awareness. But honestly, the fact that Ignar did go for that early roam is resulting in Hans supposedly being in a bit of a deficit, but he's actually maintained pretty well. He did a good job of farming under turret in the 1 versus 2, and I guess this is just something you have to get used to as an AD carry when you do play with Ignar.
Yeah, and of course, while sometimes it does cost him in this chance, it did not. You can see Mithy responding with a roam of his own, so Hans Sama pretty free to catch up here. Once again, have to keep our eyes, as always, on level 6 for the bottom lane, especially with Avaris in tow, with Kakao as well. Insane damage spike at that level 6. Trick making his presence known into the mid lane. Miasma goes down, but they're not looking for the fight here. Trick may need to back off first. Doesn't have any mana. Kakao's flashing forward. Brush goes in, but it's just going to reset the unseen threat from Kakao. This could be so bad, but they're going to back off in the end.
Really good gank from Kakao because he realized that even if Trick is here, in a 2 versus 2, Misfits are certain to win. And with no flash on top of Perks, even if he just forces him out of lane, this is a big win for the Misfits mid lane.
Not afraid to give up that control ward either, but Perks. All right.
Just delaying the back as long as he can, because look at the mid lane. Parabeeble has no mana. He wants to try and push the wave in and reset it so that he can go back. So just that pressure alone from Kakao is going to make the mid lane setup so much better for Parabeeble. He's going to get the early back. He's going to get the early buy. And really smart play from Kakao.
I wonder if Kakao should have just let him back. Maybe give the CS advantage over to Parabeeble, because Perks is just now going to back uncontested here.
No, but the important thing is that Parabeeble will get back to lane quicker. Notice that Perks still hasn't gone back. He still hasn't been allowed to buy, which means that Parabeeble can get the shove early on, and then he can make a map movement with Kakao, whether it be top lane, bot lane. It gives him so much more freedom to get a bit of deep vision into the enemy jungle and gain a little bit more control over the early game.
Perks hitting the level 6. Parabeeble should hit it as he catches this wave. We'll have now the push priority. Perks going to be quick to back to pick up a tier, potentially something else as well. Top lane remains top lane, no matter what champions.
When you actually look at the composition from G2, they have a lot of magic damage, which means that Alfari can just early prioritize that magic resistance, which is going to be great for him because Shen is a champion that if he can just stack one type of resistance, he's a pretty happy camper. But so far, things are going pretty well, or pretty even in the early game. I want to see a little bit more from Kakao. So look, you can already see the map movement coming out from Ori and Kakao, and this is why that play in the mid lane was so impactful. We're starting to see a roam top, but with no blast cone, they can't make the gank happen.
Oh, control ward is there as well, so expect giving up a little bit of extra gold, but will ensure his safety. And no summoner spells burnt quite yet. At a level disadvantage. Perks has to be careful. The roaming gank squad, Power of Evil and Kakao looking to find the setups. Kakao just going to settle for the Scuttle Crab as Perks starts to move his way to the bottom lane. Pinging out where he's headed. They know Kha'Zix is topside. He is free now to ward wherever he'd like. He has the control ward as well. Really good to have that early vision. We've seen that one go unspotted for long, long periods of time.
And this is actually pretty risky for Misfits because they do have Kakao on the top side. A bit of pressure being exerted from the G2 bottom lane, which means that with all that vision on the bottom side of the map as well, G2 may be looking for that early tower take, but with the turret still relatively healthy, it could be pretty difficult for them.
Interesting too, it feels like Misfits have just accepted that they may lose the lane here and are looking for later, more powerful scaling. The Cole coming out from Hans Sama.
Another roam coming out from the mid lane of Power of Evil. They did clear out the vision, but there is a sapling there to stave away the dive.
Kakao, the ball delivery system. Have to be careful, expecting to keep throwing the saps down. And decent poke, of course. Have to respect the twisted advance. We'll let him dodge out on any abilities, but meanwhile, Trick is on the bottom side. Daisy potentially ready to go. Ignar only level 4. Daisy comes out, maybe as a zoning tool.
They're really scared of the collapse from Perks as well, because look at this. Level 6 Trick, level 7 Perks. If nothing else, this is going to deny so much farm from the bottom lane of Misfits. And this is all because Kakao is investing his resources into the top side of the map. And that's not to say it's wrong, but they're not really gaining anything off the back of it. It's hook lands.
Oh, that's going to be good for them. Sama now locked up. Just a small damage trade overall. Ignore more than happy to heal it up. And honestly, I feel like the Saproling's kind of MVP in that circumstance, because that could have been disaster with Expect going down on the top side of the map. But spotting those, you know, the incoming Kakao out has been very good for them. But now he's on the bottom side, and they have to respect the Kha'Zix. He's not level 6 yet, but Daisy's here as well. Could be a party. Shen's on the way in. They're in the middle of the fight. Mithy gonna go down for first blood. Daisy looking for the knockup. Trick is next on the menu. I don't think he's gonna make it out. Flash forward from Alfari. The shield, the burning down. No, he might make it. The dazzle not going to connect. Alfari is hungry for blood. At the end of the day, it's only one taken away from G2.
Really clutch stuff coming out from G2, being able to get at least their jungler out alive. But the cross-map play from Alfari using that ultimate, this is exactly what we saw in game 1, but now G2 have a little bit more time to react.
TP from Expect forcing them back is going to complete just to make sure that they can clear the waves. Misfits may look to take the consolation prize, the Cloud Drake that is up and available. But honestly, a great move coming in from Misfits with what looked like control on the bottom side from G2.
And that could have been so big for Misfits, getting a double buff away from Trick, as we now see double Ghost.
Moving forward, a lot of aggression here. Headstrong Gaze not available for Perks. Shockwave not available for Power of Evil either.
So we missed a bit of a trade in mid lane. But nevertheless, the fact that Trick was able to get away on 8 HP is absolutely insane. That's so lucky. But still, like, small advantage game for Misfits. We talked about this in game 2. Typically, this is a team that gets an early game lead. Now, this isn't really going to result in a huge amount because there's still deficits in the bottom lane.
Well,
but it's a good way to start.
Yeah, small deficits in the mid lane as well. So Misfits have balanced out, you know, some of these less than ideal matchups. Power of Evil. We're gonna get triggered.
That's so obnoxious.
Why is this?
Why is this a thing? Why am I being hit in the face by a giant candy
Daisy
monster?
plus Trigger Seed is the most frustrating pair of abilities, I think, in the game.
Really?
Aside from any two of LeBlanc's skills.
No, I was going to say Nunu's Snowball is probably the most obnoxious. But we should not be concentrating on a competition of the annoying. Instead, we should highlight the advantage that Trick gained off the back of that, because it's going to allow Perks to go back. He's now already picked up his tier, but the fact that Daisy just doesn't disappear is making life difficult for Kakao, as he wants to try and get a bit of deep vision in.
And we heard this matchup talked about. You're not going to be able to isolate Trick either while Daisy's there, but we'll take another look at the bottom lane play.
So you can actually see that Kakao did a really good job, because earlier on they cleared a lot of the vision. They were preparing some kind of a play from Trick in the bottom side, and it's just really unfortunate that Handsome, he didn't have enough mana.
That's a clincher.
Yep, that certainly was. That really could have been big as well. If anyone on the side of Misfits got that double buff, really could have done a lot for their early game.
Not going to happen in the end. Unfortunate for the team. Interesting itemization coming in from Alfari on the top side. Vedius, what does the double longsword on the Shen mean?
The that's an excellent question. Gotta be honest, not something that I've seen. He could be going towards
Titanic?
Jorm's Fist, Titanic too. I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's very unconventional to see a Shen go for a double longsword early. It kind of speaks to Alfari's character, where he kind of likes to play aggressively. So yeah, okay, so he is working towards the Titanic. There we are.
Okay, there we go.
Pick up the Hydra, because I thought that the Hydra build path had changed, but nevertheless, what we need to really track is Alfari. He does have his ultimate up again.
Oh, Expect's going to be in trouble. There's the ultimate from the Tark. They're not going to take any damage. This is absolute disaster for Expect. But meanwhile, the G2 bottom lane's on the top side. Expect's buying so much time, but Ignar's going to tank that beautifully. Pull out with the clean tower dive, but what are they going to lose in exchange?
Well, they noticed that Sven and Mithy were already on the top side. They're likely going to get that turret, so they make the cross-map play. And even though they do lose that first tower blood, they're able to get themselves a kill. And really good use of the Taric ultimate to make that dive so clean and so efficient.
Daisy continues to be a hindrance, but nothing more, as Misfits are happy to back out with that. They'll take the Cloud Drake as well, but Mithy's presence has been known in the mid lane. Gets the Ghost for his efforts. Throws out the hook, but not going to connect. No one else available to back up Power of Evil as Kakao takes the Cloud Drake.
pretty advantageous as well that the top lane actually got pushed all the way into the turret, but Trick using Daisy to actually hold the minion wave means that Expect won't lose that much and might be able to claw back the deficit. But have a look at this from Ignite. Uses the ultimate, instantly followed up by his own ultimate. So he gets to take advantage of the shield. He's already got turret aggro. He's invulnerable for such a long time. And it just makes killing Expect so easy. He realized there was no point in him flashing because he was not going to get out of that.
Oh, super clean dive overall. Great timing on the Shen appearance, the Cacao jump in, and the Taric ultimate. Everyone getting affected by that in the end means that no one was going to take damage in that dive.
But just look at the level difference between the two junglers, because we've talked quite a lot about Cacao and what we expected from him in the early game. But so far, he hasn't really been able to exert that much. He tried to set up a couple of dives in the top lane, but Trek has just been continuing to farm.
And there's some decent vision on the top side, and once again, oh, perks. Saw the ult, I got excited. Not enough damage there.
Just mid laner things, you know? Because there was the possibility that he flashes the ultimate because he's scared of a potential gank coming out from Cacao. So there are advantages to using it in that way, and it's on a fairly low cooldown early on. It's about 140 seconds at level 10. On top of the blue buff as well, so it's not too bad.
Yep. Jin now moving up to the mid lane, or now to the bot as the wave pressure comes in from Shen. Multiple members committed topside just to make sure Hans Sama and Ignar cannot rinse and repeat the same dive they pulled off in the bottom lane. Expect potentially in trouble, but Thresh is on the way, as is the Ivern. Not going to look for the disengage. Flash to the Lantern. Mithy right where he's needed.
So now you're seeing the advantage of Expect not burning his flash in the bottom lane. He's able to get out of that gank. Doesn't give away his another kill. But this also means that with Mithy being in the top lane, it's difficult for Sven to try and get another turret on the bottom side. Only Trick is there to defend this turret, and it's already incredibly low. So Misfits likely going to pick up another objective.
You have to think, too, the Thresh, really good for saving your teammates there, but not going to scare nearly as well as the Taric. Daisy eaten through quite quickly. Brushmaker not going to dissuade any further aggression. Misfits grab another tower and find themselves in a gold lead here in Game 3, but only for about 0.2 seconds.
Yep.
Sven responds on the bottom side.
Very even on turrets. Only kill advantage going over to Misfits. The ultimate being used again for wave clear. I mean, fair enough, Power People. Fair enough.
He does what he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, like, he doesn't need it. The likelihood of them fighting right now is pretty low. He's going to pick up his Morello, and you can just see quite a lot of actually the first item buys coming out from all across the map.
Interesting coming in here. Redemption now finally up and available for Trick. Big difference in the coming fights. Blade of the Rune King, the build for Hans Sama this time around, will shred through those tanks quite easily, especially Ivern. Builds a decent amount of health there, but not a whole ton of resistances.
Who needs resistances when you have 70 million health shields? Like,
what is it with you in tens of millions?
I tend to quantify things in millions. That's how my brain works.
How much damage does Orianna ult do?
About 30 million, give or take.
People do like big numbers. Maybe that's how Riot should balance things from now. Just multiply everything by 1,000,000.
That'd be fun. Wait, isn't that the definition of Earth mode anyway?
Yeah, but if you multiply everything by 1,000,000, technically, like, doesn't nothing
It would
change?
all be the same, yeah. Just your health bar would be really small. It's Cacao.
Oh, moving forward. Cacao's caught out on the side. He can't jump because of the miasma. Great pickup from Perks. Ignar's used the ultimate, but it may not matter. Mithy moving forward. Hook will be ready soon, but no flash is available. Not going to be slowed up as G2 pull back.
Really want to praise Trick there, especially because even though Cacao is able to sidestep the ultimate from Perks, we didn't get stunned up, the root immediately came out from Trick, which locked up Cacao, and then as you rightly said, the miasma prevented him from being able to escape even after the root had worn off. So really good coordination from the jungler and the mid laner, and now with Cacao down, it looks like that G2 looking to put a bit of pressure down on the mid lane.
You have to remember, so much of the damage comes from Hans Sama and Cacao. Power of Evil still needs a few more items under his belt before he's going to be too terrifying. Ignar with no ultimate either means G2 are pretty comfortable to just siege up. Not a whole ton of damage laid out quite yet, but pressuring nonetheless. Jin on the bottom side, happy to push in an extra wave as well.
So a lot of the early deficits that we saw for the bottom lane of Misfits are starting to become a real problem now, as you can see Sven. Level 10 has completed the Ghost Blade, working towards what looks to be like an Infinity Edge as well. And he has a pretty big CS advantage down the bottom lane, but we'll come back to that in a minute as we see A 4-man collapse come down from Misfits. They even see Perks. They think that they can catch him out, and you can see the trigger seed doing so much work. Kakao just cannot flash out of that. And honestly, I feel like that was a poor ultimate from Alfari. He should have looked to ulti onto Kakao, and maybe they could have turned that play around. But a good teleport from Expect meant that there was an unlikely chance of Misfits being able to go for it. I honestly think that Misfits should have just immediately disengaged from that fight from the start.
Well, the good news for Alfari is he's been able to apply a lot more pressure with the early Tiamat coming out. Expect, at least for now, being forced on the back foot. But honestly, Kakao spending so much of this game playing aggressive, but now he really needs to play catch-up. You mentioned earlier, now level 9 to level 11 on the side of Trick. Forever behind when it comes to this experience. Level 2 Daisy, and no second upgrade on any skill coming in from Kakao.
And I feel like this is where you start to see the real benefits of having this scaling jungler for G2. It's around this point in the game where the Ivan really starts to turn on. Once he's completed his locket, it does actually look like he may be going for an Athene's Unholy Grail second, but regardless, once he's got 2 items under his belt, once he's around the level 13 mark is really where he's team fights. And I feel like the fact that Misfits haven't been able to take advantage of the early powerhouse jungler that they have in Kakao, they may very well struggle. But we'll have to see, because the goal is still very even. Items are fairly even across the board. And I think that around this Drake, this could be a big determining factor if both teams decide to fight.
Ocean, of course, at 20 minutes, not going to be a big deal for either squad, but a fight, a one fight, could be massive. And Mithy's the one who's going to be caught out. That's a snap in from the Orianna and going down from the support on the side of G2. Kakao now the one in trouble, but Daisy drops. Perks wants to get aggressive. The ult coming in from Tari. Is it going to be enough? 4 members invulnerable. Alfari is not, but Perks is the one who's going to get caught out. Curtain call on the backside. Han Sama gets popped. That damage was insane coming in from Sven. Now the fight backs off. The fight stalls for a mere moment as Alfari's locked up. Miasma there as well, but Perks is getting ever lower. Trick just waddling along on the front side as G2 pull away.
A lot of damage still going down onto Expect, but Power of Evil super low on mana. Both teams may very well have to disengage from this fight.
Alfari moving forward, pushing back. They have the pressure advantage for now because the health bars are a bit too low, but Sven, so far off in the fight, means he is here to clear the waves. Brush there to provide protection as well. Kakao is already moving towards the Ocean Drake, but the ping is on him, and G2 are well aware.
But I think G2 just have to give this one up because look at Drake. He's in the top side of his jungle. Expect doesn't have the teleport available. Perks is going back to base, and I think that overall Misfits should be the ones to win out on this team fight. And honestly, a lot of criticism has to go towards Mithy. Getting caught out of position like that, just walking face first into a brush without the proper support or the vision. Questionable plays coming out from the G2 support.
And has to be frustrating for him as well, because you heard it on the analyst desk. Mithy misplaying a little bit in the Malzahar matchup, not respecting his opposition, maybe doing that again in this third game. Cannot afford to be so aggressive, cannot afford to face check the brush there. Good news is they've denied the blue buff from Orianna. That will make it harder for Power of Evil to clear out the waves.
And on top of that, Perks has already been allowed to go back, and Power of Evil has not yet. He's still trying to manage these waves, making sure that G2 aren't pushing in too much, but with this clear, he should be able to go back to base. The question is, can G2 try and force anything? If you lose the mid laner, if your team loses mid and bot, they have to go back and buy. That's a great opportunity for you to move around places like the Baron and start gaining some vision control. You can already see a couple wards littered around the map for G2, but Misfits are responding with control wards, and they want to try and match this vision.
Not going to spot the ward in the end. G2 going to be well aware that their vision is being cleared out by the side of Misfits. Well aware that they have to forfeit those small advantages, but have to play safe, have to play smart. We've already seen the pick potential on the side of this Misfits lineup. G2 almost lucky that it was Mithy that got picked off last time. If it was anyone else, that fight could have gone vastly differently.
Could very well have. I feel like Power of Evil needs to go back soon. He may very well be waiting to go for, I think, what could be the Luden's Echo. I've seen a few Oriannas vary between the two depending on what you want, because you get a little bit more survivability with the Leandries, but you get a little bit more mobility with the Luden's Echo.
Yeah, Aether Wisp, I feel like pretty much cementing him in that build, but of course not obligated to finish it. May just want the extra movement speed.
Oh, he's so fast.
Cloud Drake means fancy feet. Force shot not going to be used.
Boots of mobility help too.
That's true. Maybe not the best to initiate with Jhin in that circumstance. Maybe Ignar's just a little bit too good when it comes to dodging out. Daisy now used from Trick, potentially as a zoning tool. Kakao waiting in the jungle. Daisy used to scout out the brush. Trigger Seed going to slow him up. Small engage there. Just an ultimate exchange, nothing committal, just wanting to fight for the vision.
And so far, no real setups from either team. Not enough pressure. Because when you look at the two mid laners, it's not ideal for either of them to go into a side lane because there are 0 turrets, there's no safety, you don't have enough vision control in the enemy jungle, which is why you're seeing a lot of grouping up in the mid lane, because it's too dangerous to send one of your carries off to a side lane as we see an ult in the mid.
A little bit of harass. Redemption going to pull up and heal it all right back to full.
The thing is, I feel like he's playing the long con right now, right? Because right now, that ultimate doesn't do very much damage. And G2 is just thinking, you know what, I'll take it, right? And it's going to get to a point where that Orianna ultimate can one-shot you because it's the ultimate into a quick WQ. And if they're not prepared to flash it because they think he's been doing this all game, this could very well swing a matchup.
I think it's a clear sign about the pace of the game when we're speculating as to the mind games behind kind of rampantly using
How many
Orianna
times have you just been defending like your inhibitor turret and then all of a sudden Cacao comes out of nowhere?
Well, Cacao does come out of nowhere. Not defending inhibitor turret, defending blue buff, as Power of Evil is going to secure that. Alfari has to take a few extra tower shots. But meanwhile, Sven is on the top side, so Daisy, the extra member on the side of G2, will be brought in to help clear these waves. They don't have to be scared. They know there's no ball coming in whatsoever, but Cacao maybe looking for a way over the side. Ignar are going to use the ultimate just to make sure that they shield up. Chipping away slowly but surely at that tower.
So, the big problem for Misfits there was that they couldn't commit because of the lack of Orianna ultimate available. Sven was topside, so they wanted to try and make that move down to the bot, but with Daisy there, it became a little bit too difficult for Misfits to invest their resources into it. The game is still very even at 25 minutes into the game. And I think this is a big difference from what we saw in Game 1 and Game 2, because in Game 1, Misfits had a lead and didn't know how to use it as Plurks gets ulted once again. Yeah, in Game 1, we saw Misfits with a lead, not knowing really what to do. In Game 2, G2 could just play the passive game because they had a better comp, and as long as Misfits didn't try anything with their scaling comp, then G2 would eventually get to a point where they would just out-damage and honestly just outplay Misfits. But in this game, it's very even. Both comps scale in a very similar way, both are very good in team fights, and both really want to try and do the same thing, try and force a play around the mid-game once they've got a couple of items under their belt. The question is, who's going to be the first one to force it? And I feel like G2 are actually the ones that will come out ahead simply because they have Trick on this Ivern. Level 13 to the level 11 Cacao. He's going to be that supportive jungle role. Looks like he's actually picked himself up the McHale's, so he's just going to be that extra utility that Misfits don't have.
Really want to see who's going to be the next team to pull the trigger here, to look for the aggressive engages. Will it be the Ivern? Will it be that advantage and experience use? For now, G2 going to settle with trying to get down this mid lane tower. Flank going to get used. That's a great ultimate, just as predicted. They did not expect the damage coming in there, but Perks still alive. Ignar gets burned down. Fancy footwork on the back half of that lantern. Curtain call going in. Shot goes wide, but Minty on the front side. Hansama, Miasma going in. Cacao running for his life. Alfari's all alone with Daisy, looking for the third auto to knock him up. Now looking to knock him out of the fight. Sven! Flash forward, Cacao goes down. G2 instantly in control. Power of Evil is next on the menu. It doesn't matter how many you hit with that shockwave. G2 is here to play.
4-0 in favor of G2. Ignar doesn't even have a chance to get his ultimate off. And this is the utility that we were talking about. This is the scaling advantage that G2 have with the Ivern, and they have made it work.
Now backing in, we are nervous as to how the fights were going to unfold, but one overstep from Misfits, one over-aggressive engage from Power of Evil and Cacao, means G2 will pull this away in the end. No tools to take it from range. G2 with a clean Baron, 26 minutes in, finally finding a lead.
So this is where we see a really good Orianna ultimate, and you think at this point that the fight is going to go well. I feel like Ignar should have just ulted at the very start of the fight, because if they'd had that available, they perhaps could have swung it. They could have bought time to reposition. But notice the Power of Evil. He just got zoned out by the ultimate from Ivern. Daisy was doing enough work to act as a sixth member, and even with Cassio being backed out of the fight, there's just not enough for Misfits to be able to turn it around. So mad props to G2, demonstrating that they really do know how to play these team fights, and I can't give enough credit to Trick. He did a fantastic job there.
And playing against this front line has to be so frustrating because it's not just the Maokai. Daisy's there as well, Trick there to back it up. And if you try to leap onto the back line, Mithy is there with the flay to send you right back where you came from. And it is so hard now for Misfits to find and engage. A little more damage, a little later in the game, we may have seen that 3K Orianna damage be 6K, and that may have been enough to win them the fight in a single instance.
It could very well have been, but right now it is Misfits that are on the back foot. 4,000 gold deficit. And honestly, when you put Misfits in this situation, I feel like that they struggle to know what to do. They tend to follow the playbook, and when things go outside of that playbook, they don't always know the best way to find avenues back into the game. They're just hoping that G2 make a mistake. And this could very well be it.
Good ult to stop that from coming on. Sees it coming on the ward, knows the stealth is there. Alfari's hooked up, is snared up as well. Not sure if they want to commit to this quite yet. Just hoping to get a couple extra cooldowns in the trade.
So Alfari ultimate use. He does still have his teleport available, so he could just return to the top side. You can just see G2 exerting all the pressure across the entire map with the Baron buff that they have. They haven't quite been able to get any deep vision down just yet. Doesn't help the Trick. Not actually, something that we've been seeing a lot from Ivans recently is not go for that very early Tracker's Knife, which means that you do lose out a little bit on vision, rely pretty heavily on Mithy. But still, they have pretty much good control of the map. The ultimate being used bot lane from Alfari means that Expect can pick up this tier 2 in the top lane and just extend their gold lead even further.
But the pick will be stopped there, or the push rather. G2 using this brush, weaving in and out. Willing to take a tower shot if it means a bit of tower damage in their favor. Onsama, pretty easy for him to clear out the waves with the Runaan's Hurricane, one of the perks of this build. But honestly, slow and steady now. It continues to be the story of this series. Single explosive moments defining the game, but then steady grinding finishes as G2 look to pick up another tower. Those 4 members commit onto Daisy there just to pick up that kill.
Well, I feel like things are going to be difficult for Misfits as Alfari.
Pulls back, smart play overall. Miasma not going to stop him from dashing there, not quite in range. Snare goes wide from Sven. G2 now set up the siege once again. They've taken down 2 of the inner towers. Looking now to make it a 3rd. Trick throws out the root collar, hoping to catch someone stepping forward. Spec now takes up home in the bottom lane, just using this Maokai to split push. Will have the TP shortly. Alfari with both the TP and the Stand United. Curtain call goes in. Ignar says no. He's going to make it out. Expect from the flank. That's the Snare locking up, waiting on the ultimate to come down. They may be able to start a fight on their terms. Power Beeble not quite so lucky. Alfari caught in the front lines. Daisy goes out. Trick gets pulled back, but it makes the Var Assault miss. That is disastrous for the team. Now the tower's going to fall. Redemption making it all too easy as the health bars go back to full.
2 ultimates, 3 ultimates actually used from the side of Misfits. And thanks to Redemption, all of it was for naught. Now with Daisy tanking up the turret, Kakao may very well go for a flank, but I think it's so risky when you look at how strong G2 is right now.
Of course. Can see the ward, can see the controller, but can't see Kakao. TP coming in to save the minion. Daisy pushing them off the tower. Mithy potentially in trouble. Kakao is on the flank. Not going to find the damage. The tower does fall in the favor of G2. 8K gold lead for G2 Esports. Is set to take this game. It was a rough game 1, bringing it back with a slow game 2, and now looking to close out with confidence here in game 3. Is there anything left for Misfits to do?
Well, they still have the potential for the 5-man Ori. That 3K Elo Shockwave that we used to praise so often in the past. It is a bit of a long shot, but the biggest issue that they have really is this Ivan once again. Trick demonstrating how if scaling junglers are not punished in the early game, they cause an absolute terror in these mid to late game fights. The amount of utility that he provides is just way too much compared to, it's more than the damage that Misfits can output. So basically every team fight you tried it, you think you've called out perks, actually you're just being baited into the entire team because he still has the Redemption, he has the Mikhails, he has the Locket, he has the shield, he has everything that he could need, and then you have a rock just smashing you in the face just to add insult to injury.
In this case, a delicious pastry, nonetheless.
Yes. So it's just so difficult for Misfits. We wanted to see more from them in the early game, and I feel like now we're really starting to see one of the big problems for Misfits is that these early game advantages that sometimes they do build up for themselves. We did see a few ganks from Kakao. They never really do much with. They never really snowball games out of control. They never just run away with a lead.
And the thing we have to remember is they do get the early lead.
Often,
they have the potential to snowball.
Definitely.
This is a misexecution when they find a lead, but this time they're not so lucky. They're not so fortunate to find a lead in the early game. So much of their early aggression mitigated. Vision from Expect, Diligent, having to burn the flash, but not going down in those early ganks. While G2 were more than comfortable to keep farming up. And for Trick, honestly, this has been a monumental game for him. Everywhere that he needs to be, so confident even in his own play. that he's picked up the Magi Soul Stealer. Has a QSS and a McHale's. You are not killing that Ivern.
Look at how even the game was for such a long time.
Dead even till 25 minutes. 27, 26, I can't tell. That might be 26. 26-ish minutes, we'll say. Very quickly snowballing in the favor of G2. AK gold lead maintained. We're waiting now on the Baron buff. Ocean Drake 20 seconds away, but will not be the center of attention.
Oh, nice. I just like the fact that Perk stopped to avoid that the arrow just before taking it. Pretty nice, smooth, small, micro play.
And of course, we talk about the Ivern scaling and all the utility, all the damage that comes from Daisy, how difficult it is to kill people. It's also incredibly difficult to check if your opponents are doing Baron.
Yep, it is a tad. On top of that, the fact that Kakao is still only level 13 means that his value in teamfights, look, he only has a Black Cleaver. He is so poor right now. His contribution in these fights is going to be minimal to nothing. And I feel like him flanking is not the optimal way for Misfits to start a fight.
When you look at all the peel tools available, Perks can peel for himself, Sven can with a little bit of support, Mithy's there to back up the lineup as well. Alfari's splitting in the bottom lane. He has the tools to come to this fight. Not even using the bushes too much. Will now put the Baron in the bush, actually, so that they cannot be spotted out. And Misfits are hesitating in the mid lane. They're not going to get anything here.
Nope. I mean, they're too scared to face check. The Shen, they're just too underleveled. They want to try and get an Ocean Drake back, but I feel like this is actually a big mistake because look at Misfits in the top lane.
They're just going to take everything from them. Alfari gets a tower, but the gold lead continues to grow in the favor of G2. This Ocean Drake isn't worth anything, and yet Misfits are willing to give up everything for it. A tower drops, an inhibitor now set to fall. Misfits looking down and out, mentality and focus broken as they take poor trade yet again. Now or never on that 5-man Orianna ultimate, and Daisy not gonna let it happen. That was a beautiful knockup coming in. No follow-up. Alfari on the front line, exactly who they wanted, but Patience coming in. Perk's starting to cut through Kakao. He's going to have to jump to safety. Keep your eyes on Power of Evil.
He's dead.
Burns down, Deathfire and Grass. Perks wanted to check those masteries. Looks like he checked right. Now moving forward. Shockwave not going to connect. That is disaster. And at the end of the day, maybe we expected more bloodshed. Maybe we expected more violence coming in, and G2 going to give it just a little more to close this one out, but it's clean, it's concise. G2 making sure to assert their dominance, just going to style on the remaining members of Misfits as they close out this game. Although I may have spoke too quickly.
They still have the Baron buff, they still have the minion waves coming in. G2 taking their time are likely going to take the final and third game.
Confident close from G2 and a somber story for the side of Misfits who wanted to top the charts, but it's G2 commanding games 2 and 3 to close out this series, 2-1 in their favor. Right about now.
Congratulations to G2 securing that first place spot in Group A. It was a long, slow series, but nevertheless, I feel like G2 definitely exerted their dominance over Misfits, especially in Game 3. Definitely showing a much better understanding of how to draft, playing around the early game efficiently, and honestly, a couple of mistakes perhaps in Game 1, but overall a very strong team.
I'm curious how the analyst desk is going to feel about this series when we get to hop into PGL, because is it just us that feels like the execution was a little bit slower on both sides? Do we have Trashy and support Crepo? How do they feel about these slow executions? Because I feel like we were critical of Misfits for it in Game 1, and the question is does the same apply here to G2 and their slow execution as well?
Well, that's a big question mark, isn't it? Because when we look at how often they actually had fairly advantageous bottom lanes, and when we didn't actually see them try and make that play down in the bottom lane where they tried to set up the dive, they didn't respect the level 6 Shen spike in Game 1. They ended up getting punished for it. And yeah, maybe a couple question marks for G2. Maybe they just straight up underestimate it. We heard it from Perks saying that it's likely going to be a G2-0. We even heard it on the desk. It was likely going to be that G2 just stomped this team. And I think that Misfits surprised a lot of people. There are definite weaknesses on the side of Misfits. I think that throughout this series, those have been very obvious. But at the same time, they are not a team that you can afford to underestimate.
Absolutely. We cannot forget that they did find that win. They've been together for such a short period of time compared to the roster of G2, which kept each and every member of their lineup. And It's working out well for G2 now, but we have to keep track of how Misfits develop, how they advance as we move forward.
We certainly do, and I'm excited. I think that the Misfits versus Fnatic game is going to be a really exciting one, because based on what we've seen from Fnatic, also having a few mishaps perhaps during the early game, abusable weaknesses, I think that those two really could have a tight fight for that second place spot in Group A.
Interesting. How the groups have developed. I think G2 clear contenders for the top. I thought there might be a little bit more parity here to start out. We'll have to see when these teams start to complete the second round robin against each other. If that remains the case, how things change when they play outside of their group as well.
And tomorrow is another big day for the group, because while we've been seeing a lot of top of the table clashes, we've got a lot of bottom of the table clashes tomorrow moving forward as well. So we'll start to see who's already looking towards that maybe, we need to be scared of relegation in the future, and who's going to be trying to fight their way into the safety zone, or maybe even making that bottom sit the playoff spot.
And I feel like right now our middle of the table teams are the teams that for the first 2 weeks looked top of the table and are now starting to lose against the other top teams. And, and the bottom is defined too, and we have to see who else can join them in the middle. Because there's a lot of teams that are struggling right now, but it's a lot of teams that could move up that we haven't, I don't think, seen the full potential of.
And how much growth can these teams make in the amount of time that they've got as well? Because last year in summer, we saw an incredible amount of growth coming out from the Unicorns of Love. We rated them as the bottom of the table. They moved up incredibly fast. And I think that this split, we're seeing already fantastic growth from all these new and up-and-coming teams.
Yeah, so much new and up-and-coming talent. But it's not all new and upcoming talent. Quickshot is standing by with Perkz and Sven, two well-known names.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and nicely done. It was a long game to draw out the series. I am joined by Perkz and Sven. Congratulations on the win. You do sit in sole control of Group A. I'm going to be honest. Perkz, do you feel like a winner in that series? It was slow and drawn out, and the expectation was for G2 to stomp 2-0.
Well, I do feel like a winner, of course, because we won, and I think we played pretty good around our team comps. And besides, like the game one, I think we misplayed a bit, and we got too far behind in the early game, which is partly my fault because I was sleeping, so I forgot to call that LeBlanc was missing until it was too late. And I think the meta right now is like to play slow-paced games and play for objectives and not overstep or not fight, unless you're unicorns, of course. And you can just fight and win every fight, even 4 versus 5. It doesn't really matter. So I think we played pretty good today, and I think Misfits are not expected to be stomped because they're actually a pretty good team, and yeah.
Well, definitely worked out in your favor, Sven. Game one, LeBlanc comes down, picks up a double kill, ends up chasing for a third. We heard it's because of Perkz sleeping. What's it like playing from such a big deficit? Because you guys dug deep and held on for like 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was just like chilling bot lane at my tower, and then suddenly there's 5 people in my lane. It's like, shit, you know? It really just sucks, but it's just like, yeah, we have to just give up 1 tower, trade towers on the other side of the map, and then just try to lane topside with a tower. Because if you go bot lane and you dive, lose tower, you must lane swap to have a tower in your lane. So just lane swap and try to not fall further behind.
Sven, taking a look at games 2 and 3. Game 2, very controlled. It really didn't feel like, either team had a big advantage, though you guys were in control. Game 3, obviously, sort of taking away in 35 minutes. How much does that game 1 impact your mindset going into those games for the much slower, much more coordinated play?
I think it doesn't really matter that you lose first game as long as you have like some experience in best of series. So it took like a few minutes to get a good draft going again and choose the right side, and it was fine. I think in game 2 we took a very slow game because we had a better team comp. I think like late game we have twice the DPS and more tankiness thanks to our comp. We have more tanks and more DPS, and we also have more healing with redemptions. So thanks to Ivern. So late game we would never lose. So we just played it very, very slow, and yeah.
Yeah, late game you never lose, especially when Perkz' Rise is basically unkillable. Can you explain to me the Cogmore? Is that something you've seen? Is that something you expected? Because I really didn't.
Well, when Cogmore got nerfed, I think like 1 month ago or something, he's ult because he was made to be AD carry. So it's like people like Parallel can't play mid, but I guess he's just a rebel, and I think Cogmore is not a very strong pick, even though he did good on it, I am not denying that, but I think he was not very useful because he just gets pushed in all the time by Ryze, and I can just move anywhere on the map, and he doesn't have any priority. And then in late game on level 16, yeah, he has some damage, when his ult gets stacked, but I think this champ is not that good right now in this meta, and I don't think you will see that again.
All right, I hope not to, because I think an Orianna would have been a better pick. One last question just to the both of you. Let's take a look at the other group, Group B. Unicorns of Love took down H2K. Also a very long, drawn-out series. Is that a surprise to you?
Well, it's not really a surprise. I thought that anyone could take it from UL H2K, but I think H2K in Game 3 had such a good early game. They were like 3K up and took 2 turrets, and they were just destroying unicorns, and then I don't know what happened, but unicorns magic happened, and they just team fought and won the game. I think it was just massive misplay by H2K, and it could have been the other way around really easily. So I think unicorns are a really good team right now. So it's not to be underestimated.
Sven, to close this one out, what's your thoughts on UOL and H2K as the number 1 and 2 seeds in the other group?
I think there's a lot of good teams right now in both groups, actually. I think Giants also was very good yesterday against Fnatic, but in the other group, I think the strongest team looks to be UL. I mean, they're first place, right? So they must be the best team. But I think H2K UL could have went both ways. It was really close all time. So yeah, I think both teams are good, but I think we'll win against them anyways.
Well, you're going to get your chance in just a couple of weeks' time. Gentlemen, congratulations on the 2-1. Hard slugfest at the end of the day, but you close it out and you sit atop Group A. That does it for me here on the Caster Couch. We're going to head over to the analyst desk for the post-game lobby.
Welcome to the post-game lobby. Thank you very much, Trevor. I'm joined here by Trashy and Crepo. Still after that series, well, great interviews, been very respectful about the other group as well, and just admitting that they kind of misplayed by letting the LeBlanc get into the previous game. And then here, as we said, was this a statement from G2, or did they just play it out cleanly, just wanting to get a win on the board? Did you not see the acceleration that you wanted to? That's what Dracos was asking.
I think they just showed that they were the better team and the smarter team overall. They didn't really do anything special.
But you can't be happy if you're G2. Perks is like, oh, we're so happy. Like, we definitely proved that we're a good team with this win. I mean,
to be honest, I think they just they took the easy way around it. Like, they didn't take any risks. They just kind of just roll over it, and yeah, it was. This is kind of what happens if you're the better team and you don't want to risk losing. Yeah. I feel like
G2 was playing not to lose.
Yeah, they were playing not to lose, and if you can win by doing that, then.
But you don't improve. You don't improve as a team when you play not to lose. Like, they were not playing any risks. Like, Mithy still hooks at level 5 versus a Shen who has ulti, who just proxied and just based, so he died right there. Then they're still facing left and right. They're just relying on Sven being the insane beast that he is, that he will always play consistently back range. This guy is like a monster. You can let him play for 20 hours, and he will still just play secure, and you can always rely on him to play decent. And of course, then you can play not to lose and draft Ivern really early and play super slow. And it helped that Kaká was essentially counter-jungling himself. He was 3 levels down.
And I think on top of that, they also, like both Videos and Dracos were talking about that they were maybe drawing the game out too far. But to be honest, they were just had the scaling advances with the Iron and the composition they built. So they were never really in danger of getting outscaled. So they could just play it slow and set up for the objectives and win the game by that.
And for Misfits, I mean, if you lose your Nexus and you haven't died or had a kill in 20 minutes, no offense, but like, try, do something.
Yeah.
I don't care that you go in and you just get aced 5-man, because if you're going to play like against G2 Esports and you haven't done anything for 10 or 15 minutes in a row, maybe you should reconsider either your drafting strategy or your game plan.
Could we just summarize what is the main thing we want to see from Misfits is pull the trigger more, or?
Yeah, or just make something happen. It doesn't matter if it fails, because Misfits is a team that is looking at the guaranteed outcome from the play. It's like, okay, we have maybe at best a 40% success rate. And they say, okay, we don't settle for plays that have less than a 60% success rate. But the second you're behind, you will never get better odds than maybe 4 or 3 out of 10. So you gotta go for it. And if you want better odds, then you need to play a better early game. And neither of that happened.
But to be honest, like, they're still a very new team, and I still remember one of the first time I was on a new team playing on the stage. You didn't really take those risks when you actually, in the back of your mind, you know that you have to take them, but you just don't actually.
You don't want to be the
go
guy that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think with time they will grow and they will be able to pull these plays off. So I don't think we should judge too much.
Yes, I mean, I've always been in that position as well, where you're like, I don't want to be the guy that looks like an idiot, you know, flashing in and missing a skill shot or throwing the fight. The problem is, as these seasons progress, and we're hitting season 7 now, like, I don't think the ramp-up time is there anymore for a lot of these teams. You're playing versus teams that either have a lot of established growth already or a lot of veterans in their team that are not afraid to make that decision. You don't simply have half a split anymore like you used to get to that point, because otherwise you just drop out of playoffs, and you need the ramp-up time. Because once you start making these decisions, you need to then filter them and know when to go in.
Yeah, and you're up versus teams with people like Trick on it, 2-time MVP last year, and he is also our player of the series. In this one, it was quite hard for us to kind of see who stood out. You were saying, oh, well, Sven, he's doing exactly what he should. Perks had good games. Yeah, Mitty Malzahar might have not been great, but he still played a good series, so it was a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, all of them played as they should. It was a team effort to win this one. Like, both Perks and Sven was playing very good in team fights, and the Iron kind of helped them as well. Like, I think in this game, the game could have actually shifted if in the team fight where the three-man Oriana ult hit, if they actually were able to kill one of them, but they didn't, and then Ivern is just annoying to deal with after that.
I want to quickly touch on the featured matchups that we had before and if they actually influenced anything in the outcome of the series. Ignar versus Mitty, do you think either of the performances did enough to sway it? The same for Alphari versus Expect?
I think Ignar's Thresh performance triggered the Thresh ban in game 1 and also triggered Mitty to pick up Thresh in game 3, significantly reducing impact there because I don't think Mitty's Thresh was that great because he probably just doesn't play that often. Because I know Mitty doesn't rank this champion very high, which means he picks it up. It's only to get a decent champion and mostly take away a better champion from Ignar. So in that sense, Ignar had some impact, but he was playing, I think, Karma game 2, where a late game he was pressing much. He was essentially just maybe like...
You can miss a button.
Yeah, he can literally misclick a button, and then still it's fine because he's gonna press R and then E anyways.
I think the bigger one was that I think Misfits didn't really even challenge Expect because they were just playing tank versus tank, and they actually had opportunities to try to put Alphari on a carry, but they just didn't want to take it. We don't know, obviously, if it's his decision, his own, or it's team decision, but I think they could at least try it. Like, after second game, it was very obvious, like, what was G2's plan in the next game as well, because it worked out so well in the second game, and I think they should have tried something different.
Especially when they just pick up double tanky core immediately with that Ivern. They go tank top. I think we should have seen maybe like a Fiora top lane from Alphari, trying to bust it open, because Misfits right now, it's excusable, it's all understandable, but they're not good enough for a late game team to play double carry composition against G2 Esports. They're just not at that level yet.
And then, like, an easy way to approach the game is like you have a carry top, and then they have an Ivern, and Ivern is not as strong as maybe like a Kha'Zix at pushing the top matchup in favor of Misfits, right? So I feel like they missed an opportunity to at least try that.
Yeah, they have to reevaluate that and take some more steps. And G2 picks up the win, as well did the Unicorns of Love earlier, about 4 hours ago, versus H2K and our match of the week. There's been a lot said already about it. Crepo, is there anything else you want to say about these series?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to judge both these teams because the key pivotal moments in these matches were honestly misplaced from either team. Because right here, like, if Jankos doesn't go in for that kill, Unicorns of Love don't snowball. And it was, I think Jankos was actually a little bit tilted from the double invade fail. He described himself as an emotional player. He invaded Ivern, or was it Ivern or Zach, or was it the other game? But it definitely was not playing on
So he probably wasn't triggered in the first game and
probably wasn't
the second game, right? So I mean, that's obvious.
But he was definitely, in the second game, you can definitely see his decision-making being different.
Yeah, and I think actually maybe I was underestimating UL a little bit. I think they showed today that they are a solid team, but I still think they have some weaknesses that I don't want to go too far into because we played them next week. That I think we can exploit. So I'm very excited to play them, and I hope we can.
Yeah, and again, similar here, the game was pretty even. But look, this is Hylissang over-engaging, and then by all means, H2K beautiful punish, and they play it out very well. But both these games were kind of decided by throws, and then the other team capitalizing. What I do want to credit the Unicorns for is they're just like unrelenting team fights. They just go in. They just like, once somebody says go, they all go. Like, that is really important from a shot calling point of view. You can refine the calls. It's really hard to make people all follow the same call when they may think, I'm not sure, I don't want to go in here, I don't want to sacrifice for the team. They're very willing to commit, and from behind, they're willing to become creative. Like that 3K goal deficit that they had, where Jankos picked up all those kills in those two turrets, most teams would have lost there. And the play that Unicorns went for, on paper, would have probably lost them even more, but they have the magic, they make it work.
And I think a lot of it comes down to like trust. They trust each other, right? They have said multiple times that they like playing with each other, they really enjoy playing, and I think it's some of the same things that I recognize going back in Summer Split last year, that we are playing like we trust each other so much that we just, if one guy says we go here, then everyone will commit. And I think if a team has this mentality together, then they, no matter what happens in the game, they always have the chance of comeback.
Oh, it's just like in the casting team.
Oh no, it's all man for himself here.
All right, let's take a look at the updated EU standings. In Group B, obviously, there's a bit of a shift because the Unicorns of Love have taken the reins, but I think we can agree that the Unicorns of Love and HK are pretty close together there. How far are you off of that top 2 as Splice, Trashy?
I don't think we're that far off, honestly. I think
2 games?
pretty much 2 games, right? So, I mean, I think next week will be very important for us when we face off you all, and that will kind of show how if we're even far behind these guys. It's so hard to judge actually, because in practice you can play at a certain level, but if you can't translate that to the stage, then what does it really mean, right? So we definitely have the ability to play at that level, or maybe even better than these teams. But if we can't show that on stage, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and the coolest or the most annoying thing for scrims versus stage, for a lot of people that have looked at it, is that if your bot lane plays 20% more aggressive on stage and your mid lane plays 20% more aggressive and they get a kill here and there, the jungle suddenly can alter an entirely different playstyle, because suddenly they might be winning this matchup and he can invade. But when on stage everybody plays scared and plays further back, junglers as well have to play much further back, and it kind of changed everything. And everything is dependent on each other. So you really need to mimic that scrim performance as close as you can to the stage performance.
And let's hope tomorrow, when our coverage continues, every team gives 20% more than they want
Than
to.
they do in scrims.
Yes, there we go. So we'll have Vitality versus Origin and Giants versus Rocket. Giants versus Rocket. We've seen some good things out of the Giants and not completely bad things out of Rocket, so that could be a tight game. And Vitality, they really have to get some points if they ever want to just start going in the split.
I think Origin actually looked better
As well,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, watching OG, I think their early game is solid. You have to respect them just because of their early game. But if you can't close out some of the games they had against you all, then it might get a little rough, right? So they definitely have the potential. I love the word. So
He complains to me for 5 minutes how he hates potential, and then he goes on analysis. Yeah, they have the potential.
No, but honestly, I think OG should win the series. They're looking better than Vitality right now. Vitality just doesn't look like they have any synergy at all, and they look lost in game. So
I agree.
Cool.
I agree.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sounds very awesome. Don't sound
Across
tired at all.
the Atlantic, the NALCS is currently underway. Spoiler alert, Cloud9 just 2-0'd Immortals, and Phoenix 1 went 2-0 over Team Envy. I heard Dardoch was popping off all over the place. So you gotta go.
Lost.
Oh yeah, well, it was also not serious because we just saw a highlight.
We saw the highlight.
We saw some highlights.
Unfortunate.
But still a lot of action going on over there, so hop on over to the NALCS stream, because for us here, it is time to hop off the EULCS. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trashy, for helping us through this long
what a great
but
day.
entertaining
A
game.
lot of league action.
Fantastic.
A lot of great play.
Yeah. All right. Be sure to join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central European Time for the conclusion of Week 2 of the Spring Split. Good night.
Good night.
Exile still alive. Looks to be jumped on here by Odo. Shut down by Odo one day. Flotus doesn't find a kill, but the Shumpo does. Exile's rooted down. Shumpo's over. Asharo locks him out. That's a triple. Exile's looking for the quadra. Slowly, the Nexus goes down.
Nice, good Shumpo.
In a second, it's Exile that's got the turret aggro. That's going to turn to Chachi. Wow, Chachi goes down. Exile forgot about the minions. Here comes Xerxes. Let's bounce. Rips H2K apart. 2 of them are down.
Trade. Lights for the lights, we will win in the end.
Top Shockwave is decent, but that's the shutdown. Yankos got the double, looking for the cripple and the quadra.
I killed that one already.
Down to the bottom lane, Samix is caught out. It's a 3-on-3. Both junglers available. Xerxes gets kicked backwards. Level 6 for Yankos. That's a double kill for Yankos.
Double
Aggressive flash. Exile is sent packing. Here comes Xerxes. Gets another. Yenka's in the back line. H2K are routed and they're running for their lives. There's no one left alive.
Taken down, that's the double for Power of Evil. Wants to make it more, goes in for the triple. Misfits crushing G2. Maybe expecting a little bit more of an engage. Expect is gonna go down, but no.
Good job. Good pass.
Go, Esports, go.
We're going.
We're going.
Getting knocked out of that in the end. Now the fight.
Oh, Maokai. We have Maokai.
Help me. I'm really thanking.
No, it's the Ivern and Hansama getting shot across the board. G2, one more team fight to close it out in style and evening up the series.
Nice.
Looking for the third auto to knock him up. Now looking to knock him out of the fight. Sven! Flash forward, Cacao goes down. To close out the series, 2-1 in their favor. Right about now.